keep a falling on my head. Every day is filled with dread. Well, the bombs keep a falling on my head. Everyone that I love is dead.
Welcome to Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. I'm Jonathan Friedmann.
And I'm Joey Angelfield.
Producer-engineer Mike Tomren is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim, Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Jewish Museum of the American West, and Atheists United Studios. Hey, Joey. Jewish music has always and everywhere been a mixture of local flavors, established norms, and sonic innovations, tied together by a Jewish sensibility. Our guest today proves the point with his music, deeply rooted in the American South.
We're thrilled to chat with Mark Rubin, Jew of Oklahoma, a multi-instrumentalist and singer-songwriter whose latest album is Dispatches, Songs from a World Gone Mad. Mark, welcome to Amusing Jews.
Well, howdy. How the heck are y'all doing today?
Doing pretty well. Glad to greet somebody from Oklahoma. I got family out that way.
Oh, wow. What part? What part y'all from?
Well, my uncle was in Oklahoma City for many years, and my cousin grew up, I think, primarily in Tulsa. Now she's in Jenks.
Oh, Jenks. Beautiful town, Jenks, just outside of Tulsa. Yeah, Oklahoma City is where the shul that I went to growing up was. That's about 65 miles from Stillwater, which is where I was born and raised. And we used to have to drive on Friday nights to get down there. We used to say in Oklahoma, you had to break the Sabbath to make the Sabbath.
Who were some of your musical influences growing up in Oklahoma?
Well, I come from a musical family. My mother and my father, they met in marching band when they were in their native Arizona, which is where they're from. My family actually is Western, believe it or not. I know y'all are about Jews of the West. My family originally immigrated there to Arizona and were ranchers and silver miners out that way. And so my father grew up out there at a place called Rancho Toda La Vista north of Tucson, Arizona. And he met my mother at the University of Arizona in the marching band. And he continued to play music his whole life. He played in the community band when he eventually took a job there in Oklahoma. And so there was music in the house all the time. We had a jukebox, one of those old-fashioned 78 playing jukeboxes, and there was music on that all the time. And we had one of those old-fashioned hi-fis. And as a young person, I was allowed to play that any time I wanted to. And the music that we played in our house was uniformly American. My father loved the American experience. So he played music by Scott Joplin and Aaron Copland and John Philip Sousa. That was the triumvirate in our household. that I heard a lot of the music of the American experience and the American character, especially that Scott Joplin and John Philip Sousa. I was really raised on that. And it was also because with that love of American music, my father was a square dancer. And so every Thursday I would hear the square dance band. And because of that, we would go hear that band when they would go play bluegrass festivals. So I grew up hearing a lot of bluegrass music. And so we didn't really call it that growing up. We just called it mountain music or square dance music. It was no wonder that I had a banjo for my bar mitzvah. Probably one of the few folks who can say that. I should also mention that my brother was an adopted Kiowa boy. He was an indigenous boy, and we raised him to know his heritage. So he was a fancy dancer, and we took him to powwows a lot. So I was really influenced as a young person by indigenous music as well. So there was a wide swath of influences growing up in my household.
Is bluegrass sort of a commercial term that was given to a variety of music that, was sort of pigeonholed into a genre?
Well, terminology is kind of gets a little, once capitalism gets involved, terminology becomes kind of useless. Bluegrass in particular was the terminology that was used to apply to the music of one man's music, and that was the music of Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys. So the music that they invented and they came up with was referred to as bluegrass. And so if you sounded just like Bill Monroe, then you played bluegrass. And then that became a style. But then capitalism came along. And then the last 40 years have come along, and these terminology has just been thrown around. Heck, I was in a band for a while that got called bluegrass that had nothing to do with black bluegrass whatsoever. But that appellation just got thrown upon us because of the instruments that we were playing. And, it's just meaningless. Like I say, growing up, didn't call it bluegrass, called it mountain music, called it square dance music. You know what I mean? It was because those guys, I'll be honest with you, weren't playing bluegrass. They didn't sound like Bill Monroe. They sounded like a square dance band. It was regional folk music. It wasn't really bluegrass. But someone saw a banjo and they saw a fiddle, so they thought, well, it's bluegrass, And so, yeah, these pigeonholes that get you got to go to the record store, you got to spend your money, so capitalism gets involved, and there's no time for nuance and culture when dollar bills start getting pulled out of wallets.
Back in 1990, you and banjo virtuoso Danny Barnes formed Bad Livers, the groundbreaking alternative bluegrass band.
Come on, you good time people, while I've got money to spend. Tomorrow I might need money, and I didn't have a nickel or a friend.
That was an exciting time for bluegrass, with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones forming just a couple years earlier. Could you describe the scene?
Well, I wish I could. I wish I had a good answer for you, because we were never part of that scene. Bela Fleck, and I, I'm not going to name names or go anywhere, but those guys, they never talked to us. We didn't play with them. We didn't hang out with them. And I don't want to, say anything, but it was kind of a cool kids club, and Bad Livers were not invited. We didn't get to go to the jam sessions, and we didn't get to invited to the cool concerts or anything like that. I will say, Jerry Douglas, he liked us a lot, and he hung out with us, and we do a little picking, and he was nice. But there's a whole generation of what they call newgrass musicians. And I don't know anything about them, not personally, not musically, not anything. And I know that for a lot of people, that's like a very exciting, as you said, exciting and vibrant time for music. But heck, it just passed us by. We're punk rockers. We were touring with the Butthole Surfers. We were co-writing with bands called Agony Column. We were on a punk rock record label. With bands that with names I cannot say on the radio. So we were touring with these bands. We were playing in front of punk rock audiences. We were not playing in front of bluegrass audiences. We had no interest whatsoever in living in that world. So I think what happened as we became more and more, we developed more of a profile. People saw our instruments. They realized that we couldn't play the punk rock bars anymore. Couldn't play those rooms anymore. We'd grown out of them. So the only place they could put us in were with the other bands that had banjos, and those just happened to be bluegrass bands. What's funny is that who was nice to us, who did recognize Bad Livers and take good care of us, were traditional bluegrass bands. The guys who played the good old fashioned, the bluegrass gospel bands, they liked us a lot, like Del McCoury Band and guys like that. They paid us a lot of respect, and they took good care of us, and we jam with those guys and hang out with those guys. I think in a lot of ways, they realized that we were coming from much more the same place, that we were country boys, and that we knew country music. And that we were just expanding upon it, that we weren't just trying to play it. that much like Bill Monroe, we were taking new influences and mixing them up and kind of coming up with our own music. And, I think we were a success in that respect because, hey man, no offense, but Billy Strings is playing Bad Liver's music right now. You know what I mean? Like, I just heard that David Grisman's son is doing a whole concert of Bad Liver's material next month. You know what I mean? So, like, I think, we may not have become a household name, and we may not have become a very famous quote unquote bluegrass band, but I think what we wanted to do was create our own music, our own sound, and push the lexicon of what you thought of when you thought of American music. And Danny Barnes, my partner, who I talk to every day, I literally talk to him before I'm talking to you. We still great friends, and we communicate every day. We talk about it all the time, how happy we are and how proud we are of what we did with Bad Livers. And by the way, we're working on a new record.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe.
It's an awful mess, and I'm doing my best not to cry every moment of the day. You see it on the news and all its grisly views. What can a good person say? You got your lines all drawn. Which side are you on? Nuance has flown out the door, but I am paralyzed. I can't close my eyes to the horrors of the war.
You call your music Southern Americana from a Jewish point of view. Could you explain?
When you are a Southern Jew, you are automatically pushed to the sides. You are of, but not entirely. Like I tell people, the punch card for assimilation into the South for Jews is the acquiescence to or the adoption of white supremacy. And that gets you your punch card for assimilation. But there's always a thumb on the other side of that card, because that card is provisional. And so the moment you shake around or do anything or pull on that card, like to show any kind of, human empathy or anything, right? Or any kind of Jewish value or justice or, anything like that, then that card gets pulled. And you have lost your whiteness, right? And you have lost your place, right? So you are, once you are marginalized, you are on the outside. And so I came from a household that was very, very much involved in the Native American rights movement of the 70s. So not only being Jewish, on one hand, being on the outside, but also being politically active, which meant it put you also outside of the Jewish community, because the Jewish community at the time didn't want to be rocking the boat, because they felt at the time, by being Jewish, they were a insecure minority at the time. And so they were in no position to be sticking their neck out for anybody else at the time. And you know what? They were kind of right at the time, which is kind of a sad statement on our culture. So my family didn't feel that way. And so, when you are raised as a white Caucasian Southern male and you code and identify as that, however, you are raised as a Jewish person, right? You have this unique perspective because you can walk around and operate like a white man in a white civil society and hear them talk and hear their point of view, and then also have your Jewish point of view and be able to find that place where they intersect and where they meet and where they conflict. And I think that this gives you, I say you, my therapist says, stop saying you, say I. This gives me a very, very special place where I strongly identify as a Southerner. I am a product of the South, a proud product of Oklahoma. And there is so much about Oklahoma and about its people and its place that I identify with and I will defend to the death. But at the same time, I am 100% a Jewish person, and with everything that means, with everything that contains, and I am 100% this Oklahoman, and I am 100% this Jew, and it is that dichotomy of where those things meet and where they intersect and where they don't. And my perspective, I think, is utterly unique. And frankly, if you ask me, if you want to talk to someone who's lived in MAGA and understands MAGA and talks to MAGA every day. I mean, I go to the gun range every Wednesday, for instance, have for years. Just look at the map of the United States. What is the flyover state? Point to the middle of the United States. That's Oklahoma. That's these are the forgotten people. And who are some of the most problematic politicians we have in the United States today? Oklahoma. These people were raised under the same educational system that I was. I know exactly where they're coming from. And I can speak their language. And frankly, friends and neighbors, I can explain them to you. So maybe, just maybe, you ought to listen to your old buddy Mark when it comes to when I'm telling you a thing or two, maybe. You ought to take it from me. I could be maybe your Jewish face in that big CMAG out there, to coming to report to you every now and again about what's going on over yonder. And the scene ain't so great. So maybe I'll listen up a little bit to these little 3-minute broadsides that I've been recording and releasing for y'all to take a listen to. And so hopefully that's what I'm trying to do here. That's if it hasn't been made clear up to this point.
I can hear the dog whistle, hear it loud and clean. I can hear the dog whistle, it means bad times on near. I can hear the dog whistle, and I know what it means. I can hear the dog whistle, and it's just as it seems. Where they got the white boy standing proud, saying the quiet parts out loud. But the government man gotta be a little more circumspect. Well, careful with his words so his true point can be heard, and his whistle always gets the good effect.
Your songwriting is multi-layered, both musically and lyrically, and often includes social and political commentary. What makes music such a good vehicle for these sorts of messages?
The fact of the matter is that I can't get people to listen to me. But if I take a guitar and I strum it, and if I take my message and simply rhyme it, and just strum a guitar behind it, it's the darndest thing. People play that on the radio, and it goes further. And then sometimes those melodies get stuck in people's heads, and then they repeat it in their heads, and then they share it with a friend. You know what I mean? And then maybe they sing it themselves. You know what I mean? It travels. These, it's almost as if there's two ways to think about it. I think like the words are the message, right? The words are the message, but the music are the wings. That's the wings that pick the thing up and move it along. Because without I could have you a Substack, and I could be the most brilliant guy, or I could be, but I couldn't get eyes on that. But what I can do is I can make you a catchy little melody and a clever turn of phrase and a nice little bit of picking on the guitar or the banjo. and interest you enough to listen to what I have to say. And hopefully that'll set with you. And hopefully that'll open your heart. That's all I want to do. I just want to open your heart so that you'll think about something or feel it. Because that's the problem right now. We're just thinking too damn much. Like, come on, Jews. Like, come on, we are thinking this, we're overthinking this a whole bunch. This is more dispatch from your buddy from the front lines. Trying to think through this with our friends is not going to work. We're going to have to feel this one through. We're going to have to open up our hearts to these people. We're going to have to find ways to do that. And music is a fine vehicle for opening up a heart and not worrying about that head. We can talk facts and figures and truths and lies and things like that. But, a real truth will come through a great melody. That's what I have to say about that.
Do you see yourself in the legacy of Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan and that whole crowd?
Nope.
Will Rogers, maybe?
Yes.
That's not right. I got it.
I grew up with Will Rogers. I grew up with Will Rogers. The problem with the whole Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan thing is that I'm a punk rocker. And we grew up at a time that those guys, those figures, had been so commercialized and capitalized that whatever thing that they had ever done good had been removed from them. They had been bloodlet out. And I'm going to give you an example. If you want to go to the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa, you got to pay money to get in. What else do you need to know? Right? Woody, they'll sell you a t-shirt that says, with Woody on it, that says, "This machine kills fascists." You know what I mean? Like, he looks good on a t-shirt. So they like these Woody Guthries and they like these Pete Seegers when they're good and dead, but nobody's really interested in supporting anybody who's operating like that today. So they like to quote. See, they'll throw that Woody Guthrie around, and they'll throw that other stuff around. A Phil Ox. They'll throw a bunch of stuff around. But I am here to tell you, with no offense to people who this is very meaningful to. I come from the punk rock world, so when it comes to politics, I come from the dead Kennedys. You know what I mean? Like, I come from the American hardcore punk rock movement, which happened Marxist based. I don't mind telling you, originally, and we eschewed the generation that eventually destroyed Woody Guthrie, in my opinion. We rejected that entirely, and we tried to create something new. And we tried to create something fresh and new and vibrant. And I personally feel that I feel let down by that generation that took Woody Guthrie and did that to him, in my opinion. So I try not to, and I use these opportunities, frankly, to say that. And so let's have some new Woody Guthries. Let's have some Jesse Wells. You know what I mean? Let's have some living people that we can point to and we can lift up in platform, who are talking about what's going on today, not something that we can allude to. Why are we singing Woody Guthrie songs from 60, 70 years ago? Why are we doing that? We're supposed to be writing ones about people getting shot down in the street right now.
It's too late now, it's already begun. I recommend you go and find you a gun, a box of ammo and some 30-round clips. It's too late now, it's already begun.
Jewish culture also values humor, and your songs have plenty of it. What's the rhetorical function of humor in your songwriting?
Not everybody can sit there and get kicked in the teeth for 45 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, my music is uneasy listening, right? So there has to be a certain amount of aftercare. So you got to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on this stuff every now and again. So I try to be a funny guy. You know what I mean? I try to put some humor, some funny ha-ha, even when it's sardonic, because these are tough times. So even my humor is a little gallows and a little dark, but we're Jews, right? We're Jews. We can't cry. We have to laugh through this stuff. It's laugh or sob. This is our culture. This is part of how we handle this stuff is making a joke. So I've got a few funny little, I've got a few little funny ha-ha songs that don't have to do with politics or social justice or any of that kind of stuff at all. They're just like, ha ha ha. And I throw them in there just to bring the heart rate down. And I try to be clever, and you just try to be clever because you're trying to catch people's, attention. And that's all. It's our tradition, is it not?
You've also given lectures on Jews in the South. What do people find most surprising about Southern Jewish life?
I should let you know that I'm employed by a place called the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience, who I do not speak for at this moment. I'm simply employed there, and it is where I have learned everything. So if you want to come and learn all about the experience of how Jews came and immigrated and integrated into the American South, I strongly recommend when you come to New Orleans, you come and visit. It is an incredible place. And this is how I learned everything I know. I think three things surprise folks. Number one, Jews got there a lot earlier than anybody thought, that they were mostly Sephardic when they got there, as early as 1610. From places like Recife and Curacao, right? The largest Jewish congregation in all of America was in Charleston in 1800. Mostly German Jews in the South don't have that Ellis Island experience. No Yiddish, no, nothing like that. No bagels, no Yiddish, none of that kind of stuff. Assimilated right in there, kind of like me. No Jewish girls to marry, all intermarriage, but stayed Jewish. And then another thing that really blows people's minds are non-Zionist shuls. That were all over the South, like mine. So a lot of folks didn't grow up in Zionist atmospheres, at least my age. Now, if you're younger than me, that was different. After the 6-Day War, Munich, things changed. But I didn't grow up that way. That shocks people. And then the fact that Jews in the South were just they didn't fare well, historically speaking, when it came to civil rights, as far as participation in civil rights went, for the reasons that I discussed earlier. So those are some of the things. Oh, and Jewish participation in the Civil War and slavery, that's always something fun to talk about. But Jews participated in both of those things at the exact same numbers as their neighbors. That is, they participated in the institution of slavery, just like everybody else. And no, they did not. They were no better or worse than anyone else.
Do Southern Jews celebrate Judah Benjamin?
I am so glad you asked. I was just going to talk about Judah Benjamin. There was no Jew who owned more human beings than Judah Benjamin, 247 on his plantation called Belle Chase, a sugar plantation. He was one of the most celebrated people, not just Jews, people in the South. He was the Secretary of War, the Secretary of State for a period of time. He is on the Confederate $2 bill. So beloved. He was the financier for the South, kept them afloat for at least a year longer than they should have been. Passionate advocate for the institution of slavery, escaped to England at the end of the war and had a long career as an educator there, wrote a book on common law that's still taught today. Without a doubt, there is no more consequential a Jewish person probably in the United States.
Yeah, certainly the highest ranking political officer.
No one's ever reached higher. He just pitched for the wrong team. That's all. History is history, and you have to tell it. And I gotta tell you, when I go and I give these talks, it is the greatest joy of my life to share the narrative of the story of the people that created people like me. And I gotta be honest with you, when I traveled many times in my life, I've traveled, back east, where the Ashken normativity and the Ellis Island narrative is reigns supreme. I show up the way I am, and I kind of challenge that narrative, and oftentimes am made to feel less than in many respects, simply because, for instance, I don't fit the mold of what a Jew is. Whereas amongst my own people here, this is what a Jew looks like, like the Jews of Morocco look a certain way. The Jews of Chile look a certain way. Well, the Jews of the South look a certain way. Why wouldn't, people ask me all the time, they go, oh, they got Jews in Oklahoma? And I go, yes, ma'am. Where are you from? And they go, oh, I'm from Manhattan. And my response is, oh, do they have Jews up there? Jews in New York when I was a kid were as exotic as could be. A bagel? What is that? To this day, I don't like lox. Ugh. Get me barbecued. Good old brisket. That's what you do with a brisket. You smoke it for 14 hours with post oak. I don't know what y'all do with brisket up there in New York. Y'all are out of your minds.
So, Mark, what are you working on these days, and how can our audience keep up with what you're doing?
Well, it's really easy to keep up with me. Every month or so, or every couple of months, it seems that I get a wild hair and I release yet another single. So if you get to my Bandcamp page, and it's real easy to find, if you just, gurgle Jew of Oklahoma and Bandcamp, it'll show up. And what you will find there is that I've released several records. I've got 4 records of my own under the name Jew of Oklahoma. I've got a dozen other records playing all kinds of different music. Klezmer music, Western swing, my band Bad Livers, all kinds of different kinds of music you can find. So that'll take you days to parse through. But when it comes to my music, as the Jew of Oklahoma, you can see that I'm releasing single after single. I've been working with Yiddishist by the name of Michael Wex, and I have 2 tunes that I released recently. One from a poet named Shmerky Kazaginski, a tune called The Barricades, which was written in 1928 about a labor strike, where he told people to run the barricades, which is something which I think we should do, promoting a general strike. Then the second one is called Nobody's Pigfoot, which I'm sending out directly to the Jewish community. It's a song from Michael Wex. It was written originally in Yiddish, and then he and I translated it together into English. And it's a little song about Jews being used as political pawns. And then I just yesterday released a new single It's my darkest release yet, called It's Already Begun. And you can find all of these things on the Bandcamp. And like I say, I'll just get I'm going to get a wild hair every now and again and release a new tune, and I hope that I'm not like that rabbi who in Jerusalem who would go to the Wailing Wall. He would go there every day, no matter what was going on, even during the 6-Day War, even during war. He would risk his life. He would go to the Wailing Wall. He would pray, and then finally a journalist from Haaretz came to him and asked him, Rabbi, I have one humble question. May I ask, what are you praying for? And the rabbi says, it's very simple. I have one prayer. I'm simply asking for peace amongst the world. That's all I ask for. And the journalist asks him, but Rabbi, how does this make you feel with so much strife and war in the world? And the rabbi looks back at him and says, it makes me feel like I'm talking to a damn brick wall. So hopefully, by putting out all these singles and getting them out into the world, hopefully you'll listen to them. Hopefully you'll hear something in them, that something will resonate with you. Hopefully that'll open your heart. Hopefully that you'll hear something, that you'll share them with a friend. And maybe at some time when you're not feeling so good, you're feeling down, maybe this will give you something to help you lift up, make you feel better about where you're at, maybe make you feel better about where we're at, and maybe spur you on to make that change, make that step, get out in the street, do whatever you can, because nothing's going to change unless we gather together and make it change. And we got to get our skin in the game, friends.
Thanks so much, Mark, for joining us.
This has been absolutely delightful. Can we do this again?
Absolutely. And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives.
Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.